Hello everyone, I hope you are well. In today's video, we will see the difference between the controller and the REST controller in the Spring Framework. But before starting, did you watch my previous video in which I talked about can AI destroy human jobs? If you are new here, I am Hassan and I post tutorials on this channel. If you might be interested in watching those videos, consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions, comment down this video. Let's start today's video without any further delay. So the controller and the REST controller both are the Spring annotation used to mark a class as a controller. The main purpose of the controller is that it handles HTTP requests. Like in blog, it says that it handles HTTP requests and return a response to the client. And the response will be like a view. For example, the response will be a HTML file or a CSS file, or it can be a JavaScript file. I'm going to give you an example of add controller annotation in Spring MVC, and you will clearly understand what are views in add controller annotation. Now let's talk about what is add controller. The REST controller is also an annotation, as I said before, but is used for RESTful web services. The address controller will basically return the data to the client in the form of JSON or XML file. Unlike the add controller, it returns views, but in REST controller, returns the data in the JSON or XML file. Basically, you can say that it returns the data in a structured format. So now let's talk about what are the difference between add controller and REST controller annotation in Spring MVC. The first difference is that we have already learned that the controller returns the views and the add controller returns the JSON or XML file to the client. The second difference between them is the request mapping. The controller uses the request mapping annotation, whereas the address controller uses the get mapping annotation. It uses some specific annotations like get mapping and put mapping, etc. Now let's talk about their purposes. The REST controller is designed for the traditional web applications where the primary goal is to return the views, typically rendered with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. On the other hand, the purpose of the address controller is designed for RESTful web services where the primary goal is to return the views to the clients, often in form of JSON or XML. Now let's go towards the example of the act controller and REST controller in MVC. So here I'm going to use the NetBeans IDE. You can use any type of IDE, but now let's configure MVC for the add controller and address controller in a Spring MVC. So here I have opened the NetBeans IDE. Now, first of all, what you have to do is to check if you have the plugin for the web application. So by clicking on new project, you will see that Java with Maven and you will see that web application. So when I created the project earlier, I saw that this option was not available for me. So what I did, I went to plugins and then simply I went to the search bar and searched for Java EE, or you can also search for web, and you will see something like Java EE or web services. You have to install that plugin, and the installation is very simple in this case. So after installing from there, what you have to do is to create a new web application, and you can name it anything. So I'm going to name it MVC Simple Web App and click on next to create the project. Okay, so here is the setting for server. You can see that here it says that Apache Tomcat or Tom EE. I previously ran the project, so therefore it is automatically selected. But for you, it may not be selected right here, or you may have not installed Apache Tomcat. So for this, what you have to do is to first go to the Apache website. You can simply search Apache Tomcat server and go to the second link which says Apache Tomcat 9. And if you are using Windows, then you have to select this one, Apache Windows Service Installer 32 or 64-bit. So after downloading the file of Apache Tomcat setup, you will see something like this. The installation setup is very simple. You have to click on agree and you have to select this one, host manager, click on next. And what you have to do is to just give the username and password, which will you have to give to NetBeans IDE, and when you are going to log in into the Apache Tomcat server, it will ask for that username and password. So it is here you have to set the username and password right here. After that, clicking on next and it will install the server in your machine. I'm not going to do this because I have already installed Apache Tomcat server. Now let's move forward towards the project setup. After that, you have to click on add and you will see the configuration setting for Apache Tomcat server. You have to just give it the password and username. And if you get any problem, just let me know in the comments and I will guide you to the setup of the Apache Tomcat. And from Java EE version, I'm using Java EE 8, and you can select this too. And then click on finish. You will see something like this. You will see build success. So now what you will see, the project files will be right here, and you have to right click on it and go to properties. There is a tab named frameworks. You have to click on add and you will see the Spring Web MVC. You have to click on OK and it will take some time to search for libraries and then just use the default version of this. Click on OK and then it will just add the framework to this project. And you can see that there is a package called a simple web app, simple MVC web app. And what you have to do is to create a new controller class right here. I'm going to name it index controller and then click on finish. Okay, I have already got the code for the index controller with the annotation as controller. So I'm going to just paste it right here. And you see that there are two libraries what you have to import right there. So I'm going to just paste them right here. The first one is for controller annotation and the second one is for request mapping. The annotation of controller should be before your class name. And you can see that we are using add controller with the request mapping, as I said before. Now you can see that it is returning the view. So what is the view? It is actually a HTML file with the name index, and there is also a .jsp file with the name index. So the return will be the .jsp file right here, and in that .jsp file we are using some type of HTML. So I'm going to create this index.jsp file. What you have to do is to just go to the web.inf folder, then go to JSP folder and click on index.jsp and you will see something like this, or maybe it's some type of different for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how can you create this index.jsp. You have to just click on JSP folder and then click new, go to JSP and then just type index. The index name should be the same in the return statement so that it will return this view. You can see that we are using some type of HTML right here. Now for checking, we can call it calling from controller. This will be title of the page. And I'm going to just type some statement right here and then save the file. Now we have just created the index.jsp and the controller for this file. What you need to do is to save every other file and click on build. After building, you will see that it has been successfully built. Now for running this project, we have to do another step. If you remember that we installed the Apache Tomcat server, we have to run that server. So for this, what you need to do is to go to the installation directory of the Apache Tomcat server. I've installed in program files and you will see Apache Software Foundation. Go to Tomcat 9.0, then click on bin and you will see startup.bat. If you just open it and you will see something like this, and if it is not showing any errors, that means that server has been startup. You can also see right here server is startup. Now let's move forward toward the setup. You can see that I've already built a file. Now what you need to do is to go to your browser and type localhost with the port 888. So the 888, I have changed the port right here because the default port of the Apache Tomcat server was used by some another application in my machine. But for you, it might not be the case. So you may have to type localhost colon 8080. So it may work for you. You will see this screen. What you have to do is to go to the manager app and it will ask for the password. If you remember that we set a password while installing it, so you have to just give the username and password right here. I'm going to click on sign in and you will see something like this. What you have to do is to go to the section war file to deploy and go to the choose file option. And what you have to do is to go to your project folder directory which we have created. And if you remember, the name was simple MVC web app. So I'm going to just open the project and you have to go to the target folder and you have to select the war file. Click on deploy and you will see that it will be added right here after it has been loaded. So the loading has been completed and you can see that the project has been added right here. The name was simple MVC web app. Now what you have to do is to go to localhost and the port name and then that project name. So the project name, you have to copy it and just paste it right here. Press enter and you will see the result that we have did in the index.jsp file. So you have learned how to use add controller. Now let's move forward towards the REST controller. How can we use that REST controller? So I'm going to do the same. Click create a new class in the MVC project and just name it index REST controller and name anything that you want. I'm going to click on finish and it will ask for the password and username for the Apache Tomcat. You have to give the password and username that you set before while installing the Apache Tomcat server. Now I have already got the code for the index and REST controller for as an example. So I'm going to just copy the code and paste it right here. So you can see that we have imported the four files. The hash map and map4 is storing for data and the get mapping and REST controller annotation library. So we are using get mapping and REST controller as we talked before, and the annotation at REST controller is right here. So it will return the data to the client in the form of JSON or XML file. But this is just an example to give you an idea how the REST controller works. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to build a project right here, and there is an alternative way for running the project after you have did the manager setup and deploys the file right here from here. You don't have to do this again. You don't have to deploy again, or you don't have to choose this file again. You can just simply build a file, and if you see build success, you can then just go to the run project button and click on it. It will automatically open your default browser with the default data. So right now I just ran the index REST controller file, and this has opened the Java revisited index.jsp file. So this is just an example for how can you just use the REST controller and controllers for getting data and getting the returning the views to the client and returning the data to the client for by using REST controller. So this was all about today's video. We learned the difference between REST controller and REST controller is in Spring MVC with the help of the examples in Java. So if you have any questions, comment down this video, and if you like the video, click the subscribe button and don't forget to click the bell icon so you will be notified when I publish the next video. Thank you guys for watching.